Welcome back to Late Night Snacks, everybody. Harry's here. So today we will be discussing Roanoke, my Roanoke Nightmare WTF Moments from episodes 1 through 5. I will be one of your beautiful hosts, Irish Melly. Right over here, we have the beautiful DeWanda.
Hey, everybody.
And then right down here, I think it's like,
yeah, there he is.
So with that being said, let's just go ahead and jump right in. Kind of like we were just discussing, though. I mean, this season is just full WTF moments. So there's a lot to go over, even in these first 5 episodes that we're going to touch on. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in with episode 1.
Number 1.
As soon as we start, one of the big things is Matt's attacked as part of the gang initiation. We see what do they call it? The knockout game, I think is what they called it.
Knockout.
Yep.
Yeah, and they knocked him out so bad that they messed up his orbital socket and it had to be reconstructed.
Yep.
Then while he's in the hospital, Shelby has a miscarriage due to the stress from the assault on Matt and from being put.
Yeah.
And then the big WTF moment right after that we see is bam, there's no opening credits.
My Roanoke Nightmare.
We go right into My Roanoke Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
We then hear pigs squealing and banging on their door while Matt and Shelby have sex. That's definitely a turn off if I've ever heard one.
It was weird.
Yeah. It begins raining teeth heavily. We see lots of teeth drop. Then we see 2 nurses are in the house and they walk by Shelby as she walks down the hallway drinking her wine. Shelby sees torches lit around her while she's in a hot tub and she's almost drowned. Again, with the squealing pigs at night.
Yeah.
Matt finds a mutilated pig on the front porch.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get a little bit of Lee's backstory, and we see that Lee sees a baby in a crack house, and then she's shot while trying to go to this baby. She chases down a serial rapist while she's under the influence of her pain medication from being shot from that last scene. And this guy shoots himself in the head and blows his head off all over the interstate.
Mm-hmm.
Shelby puts down a butcher knife while she's cooking, and she walks away. She comes back, and it's been used to stab the meat that's in the frying pan.
Yep.
Now, this is the 3rd time we hear pigs squealing at night.
Wait, look, somebody go kill those pigs.
I mean, we'll get to hear that a lot this season.
Yeah, a lot. Then Matt sees people with torches going towards his house because he set up the video camera when he's out of town, and he sees the people with torches going in towards his house where his wife and his sister are. When Lee and Shelby come up,
I have to interject because there's a little Easter egg in that scene if you're paying attention. On the TV in Matt's hotel room, they're actually playing OJ on the freeway during his chase.
Were they?
Yep.
I didn't even notice that. I'll have to go back and look now.
You only see it for like a split second, but it's
and after these people go into the house, Lee and Shelby end up being in the basement, finding a videotape. Then they hear the people upstairs. When they come up from the basement, a little homage to the Blair Witch Project, we see the wooden stick figure dolls strewn up everywhere around the house. Shelby takes off in her car. and she says, I'm done with this. I'm getting out of here. She runs over the butcher, who we don't know is the butcher. We will come to see. We see that she runs over an older woman in old timely clothing and colonialized clothing. Then she decides to run off after her into the woods, and she finds the stick dolls all over the woods there. The ground begins to pulsate as if it's breathing when Shelby falls onto the ground. Shelby then sees a man scalped running in the woods. Well, not running, kind of stumbling.
Yeah, he wasn't exactly running.
And that's how we end episode 1. So then we jump into episode 2, and we see, we jump back to this scene where we were at when Shelby's still in the woods, and we see she witnesses the barbecue, as I call it.
Yeah.
The pig head is placed on the man, and then he was burned alive on a spigot over a large fire.
Mm-hmm.
Then Lee brings Flora to the house. She has Mason bring her daughter Flora to the house.
Big mistake.
Flora stares at an empty black crawl space and talks to a ghost named Priscilla.
Oh.
More midnight pig squealing. Matt and Shelby separate in the woods as they run out because they're tired of dealing with these inbreds, as they call them. They separate into the woods. Then they run into each other, and we see a burning effigy and a pig head on a stick, on one of the stick figure bodies, with entrails searing over the spigot on the fire.
Yeah,
very gruesome.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were very
graphic
when it came with that stuff.
Yeah. The phone rings in the middle of the night. Matt answers to static, and then a voice saying, "Help me." And then I believe after that she says, "Why did you let them hurt me?" or "Why are they hurting me?" And then Matt then sees that the phone is completely unplugged. It's not even plugged into the wall. He turns to see 2 nurses with an old woman in his dining room area, which now doesn't look like his dining room. It looks like a hospice area.
Right.
They're trying to make her take medicine. She doesn't want to take it because it makes her sick. So they say, "Oh, is that back talk, Margaret?" And then they shoot her in the head. Then they spray paint the M on the wall. M is for Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
Mason comes to pick up Flora. Hey,
Will is here.
I'll be in the house.
Flora hides with Priscilla in a crawl space when her father comes to pick her up. And she says she's offering her doll to Priscilla. And her mom asks her why. And she says, so she won't kill us. She says they're going to kill us all and save me for last. And then after that, Lee gets drunk because she's upset that Mason takes off with Flora and says he's not bringing her back. So Lee gets drunk, and Shelby sees butcher knives. I believe it was 5 of them. It might have been 6.
There was like 5 or 6
up in the ceiling above where Lee was. And she's like, "God, Lee, what are you doing?" And she's like, "I didn't put those there." Matt puts Lee to bed because, like I said, she's drunk. She's stumbling all over the place. She's upset. She's distraught. So Matt puts her to bed and tells her to get some rest. And then he leaves the room, and we see the 2 nurses walk up to Lee while she's laying in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Lee wakes up because she kind of sees them, but then they're not there. So she wakes up in a panic. I'm not sure if her eyes are playing tricks on her because she's been drinking. She walks down the hall and sees pigtails nailed to the wall, bloody and wagging. Just wagging.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's more like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just wagging, bloody, nasty stump of pigtails nailed to the wall. She looks in the mirror, and then she sees the piggy man. Oh, Afro-Will, you're amazing.
So sweet. Thank you.
Well, we're glad you enjoy it because this is why we do it. We then see when they go outside, because at this point, Lee's already kidnapped Flora and brought her back to the house. They talk to Mason. Mason's coming to get her, and they tell her, "Listen, you've done too much. This is crazy." So then they're going to find Flora, and they can't find her. We see more of these wagging pigtails nailed to a tree outside. And then as they look for Flora, we hear a loud, I can't talk, a loud scream, like ear piercing by Lee. And then we see that Flora's sweater is about 20, 30 feet up in the air in a tree. And that's how episode 2 ends.
Yep.
Episode 3 starts right there. But I got the biggest what the fuck moment from episode 1. What the fuck are they still doing in that house? Why
really?
the hell did you go outside in the first place?
Because at one point Shelby wants to leave and she's like, I'm done. We're done with this. But then after she goes to the hospital, Shelby's the one who says, no, we're not going to let them run us out of our house.
Okay, when you start seeing nurses in your house blowing people's brains away and spray painting shit on the walls, I don't care. You're gone.
Yeah.
And then you discover that it's real, because that was another thing that I kind of left out because it wasn't too big of a WTF. But when they find Elias's videotape in the cellar,
right?
He tells them the story of the nurses and everything, and that's when they pull the
all this mess is really going on.
Word murder. You're
like, gotta go. Got to go.
Time to go.
Yeah, gotta go.
I understand you putting all your savings in, but I don't care. There's no savings in the world. You get in your little car and you take off, and you worry about that shit later.
Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, so episode 3, jumping right in. They're on the hunt for Flora. A couple things they find. They find the sweater. They find the doll that's all like cut up and got like pig parts in it. So you're like, what? There's a lot of mystery in these. Exactly. There's a lot of mystery set up in these first 3 episodes until the end of this episode. Then we start getting things really unfolding. But we got the biggest I think what the fuck moments of episode 3 is the Polks. We get our first glimpse at Polk life because they find the farm. They're out searching for Flora, and this is kind of our first deal of Flora. And then we're gonna get Matt later, and it's crazy. Yeah. But this is our first introduction to the Polk aesthetic. So we're getting the farm, and they show up in the farm. They get in the house, and the house is like all rotting and nasty and all sorts of shit. Right?
It looks like it's a condemned, just abandoned, forgotten house.
Correct. Yeah. And so they look at the fridge, and there's like all this rotting crap in the fridge. There's a
why would you open the refrigerator? That's my question. Why?
I don't know. Who knows? You know the smell is right there.
You never know where kids hide, Yeah,
exactly. They think Flora's being captured in there. So they get into the backyard, and then they find like a little barn door, and they go to the barn door, and they open the barn door, and they see something, a big old pig, pregnant pig laying, or a post-pregnant pig laying on the floor, and you hear the suckling sound. There's 2 little boys. They're sucking on the teats of this pig. Now you're really like, what the fuck? I'd have been gone. Flora, you're on your own, bitch. Yeah. Bye.
You
that's when we see that they're boys, because they're going, Flora.
Yeah. Yeah, they're mocking them saying Flora. So they're taking the police station. We find out a little bit later at the police station that the kids were only saying Croatoan. And so that's where we get this connection back to Croatoan. And the show has left us to reveal that Matt and Shelby feel that word is a warning. So this is our first glimpse that we get that the word is a warning, not as a ward off. Croatoan, something's coming.
Right.
So
well, and that also ties it back to Murder House, where she was given that.
Yes.
Given the Croatoan to make them go away.
Yep. So there's Shelby. The little girl's still missing. Lee's husband shows up, and he's like all angry. They look some more, and then find out that Lee's husband starts to blame Lee. You kidnapped her once from the house. You've got her kidnapped. You got her stashed away. Once this search is over, you're gonna take her to Mexico or some shit. Gets all crazy. They get in a big old fight, and everybody goes to sleep that night. And oh no, that was a little bit later. First off, we got the Cricket. Cricket shows up. And lo and behold, he says that he was called. He was called to the house. What the fuck? Who the fuck called you? And then he says, somebody.
We know the phone was unplugged. Who
Yeah,
called
we
you?
already know that part.
And so he starts to inspect the house. He kind of ropes them in, and he starts to inspect the house. And he says, Flora's here. He's up here in this little room, and she's not dead, and she's been with Priscilla, and all this stuff. And everybody's like, how's he know this shit? And then he says, I want X amount of money, $200,000, some shit. And and then Matt's like, get out. Get out. I no. And Matt's the firm. Shelby's kind of like, oh, what happened? He goes to leave, and he whispers in Lee's ear, and he asks Lee about her first daughter, who also went missing. And that's when Lee freaks the fuck out. And she goes to see him later, pays him the money to come back to the house. At the end of the episode, the last what the fuck moment that we had at the end of the episode was Lee's husband takes off after the big old fight that they have. She goes out. They don't know where he is. Cops come the next morning because everybody's asleep. Cops come the next morning and they said they found something. They found the body. They go out there and there's Mason's body, like crucified on this big old thing, burning and shit. And they find out at the end that Lee had left the to and from the house in the middle of the night. Take that. I gotta grab this call. That's what talk to.
That jumps us into episode 4.
Yep. Episode 4.
Nick was acting like somebody was at the door. No one's there.
All right. So
it's a ghost.
Woo! Anyway, so that jumps us into episode 4. And our first what the fuck moment, at least for me, was when Shelby was upstairs getting ready to take a shower, and she opens the shower curtain, and there's the piggy man. That would scare the shit out of anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was once again tied back to Murder House now, where we see Piggy Man in the shower.
Yep. And that's the same myth.
And of course we get to hear Shelby scream for the 20,000th time. And they go running down the stairs, and this is where we get to see Elias again. He's the one on the videotape.
The professor
trying to tell them. Yeah, which I love that performance. Elias shows up and is able to stop the piggy man, and then we get to hear Croatoan again. And at this point, this is the 3rd time that they've heard it, according to Shelby. They've heard Croatoan for the 3rd time. And she wants to know why, obviously. Mm-hmm. And we also get, during this episode...
What are you watching?
Huh?
Yo, this dog is freaking the fuck out. Look. You see him?
Yep.
Nobody's there.
Somebody's there.
Okay.
Okay, then.
Hey, what are you looking at?
So, anyway, we also...
Dog whisperer.
We get more backstory on Elias, and it turns out Elias was the owner of the house, and because he wasn't able to pay a tax bill, he ended up losing the house, and that's how Matt and Shelby ended up getting it, unfortunately, because he had just bought the house so that no one else would live in it and no one else would die, and it didn't exactly work that way. And he's been doing research on all of the goings on in the house. So this is where we get all the backstory. We get backstory on the Chins. The Chins freak the hell out of me, because
that is my scariest ghost entity from this season is them. They freak me the fuck out.
They don't run around like normal.
Well, they're distorted. That's what it is. They're distorted. So that anything disfiguring or distorted is not normal.
It's like they're running around like they're spiders or something.
Yeah.
And it's just freaky.
That's why The Ring was so successful.
Oh, you should put Debbie's last comment up there real quick.
The Grudge.
Oof.
See, I like that, Debbie. That's really cool. And I like that theory that could possibly be Queenie. That's a good theory. I like that.
Yep.
Does the timing work out?
We don't know how old Queenie is.
No, we don't.
She's got to be in her early 20s, if anything.
Yeah.
But as Elias is doing his research, we find out information about the blood moon and find out that all of these murders happen during a certain cycle during the year, and it's almost always in October.
Yep.
Okay. When all of these things are happening. And they called it, what did they call it? They called it, it was called the Dying Grass Moon, and it lasted 6 full days.
Oh shit! We didn't say what episode 3 they gave the backstory on the butcher.
Yeah.
That was
You
just
missed all of
too.
that.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
you
shoot.
know,
Good job dropping the ball there, Mike.
Somebody just the whole episode. Every episode, the whole episode are just what the fuck moments. It's all
Yeah.
off.
yeah. But so yeah, we got backstory on the Chans and the fact that they knew nothing about the house when they bought it. So they were like, excuse the pun, like pigs to a slaughter
Mhm.
when they actually bought the house because they knew nothing about it, and they tried to deal with their ancestors to see if they could stop it, and there was no stopping it.
Yep.
And the butcher ends up killing the husband with a hatchet right to his
I like
head.
them all sitting there eating their TV dinners.
Yeah,
Yeah.
watching the Partridge Family.
Uh-huh.
A very assimilated Asian American family.
Yes. So, and then we get our first mention of Edward Philippe Mont, because he's the one who built the house. The house was built in 1792. So,
Long time ago.
long time ago.
But that land was already cursed, we know at that point, because we know
yeah.
the colony that disappeared was in the 1500s. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because we during this is all in episode 4, and when the settlers were fighting with Thomason, they were getting ready to leave, and she decided that she was going to kill the entire colony, and that's how they disappeared, because she poisoned them with poison fruit, because Scathis told her to basically,
from the previous from the previous episode, they take her out to the woods because they were getting rid of her because they didn't like her behavior in the camp or whatever, and
They put the thing on her.
and they put the cage on her face and locked her up and was going to take her out to the woods to rot and to die, and that's when Scathis comes in and makes a deal with she makes a deal with the devil, and and then here we're at episode 4.
Because we also get the backstory on Scathich and the fact that she's the one who started this whole curse.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we find out that she's the OG Supreme.
Find out
Well, we never did find out she was the OG Supreme. It's never been stated in the show.
Well, that wasn't said in the show.
Yeah.
It wasn't said in the show, but it's kind of implied.
Yeah, just Ryan says it.
But basically, Cricket goes out because he wants to get answers, and he goes out, but he doesn't actually come back. Unfortunately, we don't find out until later, toward the end of the episode. But
Have you ever heard "gay for pay"?
I was just gonna say, have you ever heard the term "gay for pay"?
That already won the one line of the season.
And just that little tidbit right there with that, we see that the driver's name is Rhett Snow.
Yep.
So I just find it odd that they would use that same last name and it not be meant to have a connection.
Yeah,
I know. So it's got to be brought up eventually sometime in the future, you would think.
Yeah.
But episode 3 ends with Cricket being disemboweled by the settlers, which is like,
What the?
yeah,
fuck?
it's one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen. And that is
I
how
don't know. Roy's is pretty gruesome, and then the campers or the
YouTubers,
explorers, the YouTubers, yeah.
Yeah.
Theirs was pretty gory too.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But we'll get there.
That was all episode 4.
I still think the gore really comes from the Pulse. Just the
Oh, yeah.
whole torture is just
all the
God.
torture.
Because all of the gore that we see, except for a little bit of it, is the reenactment. You know, at this point.
Yep.
Whereas, like you said, when we see the Polks, that's real
That's real.
life. You're kind of like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yep.
So, and then we get into episode 5, and episode 5 is all about Edward Philippe Mott.
And we get his backstory.
So we finally get his backstory. So we finally get to see Evan Peters after waiting almost half a season.
Everybody was freaking out. Where's Evan? Where's Evan?
Yep.
And he had a disorder where he just like he didn't like people at all. All he wanted to do was be alone with his art. That's it.
His boyfriend.
And his boyfriend.
And his boyfriend.
Slash servant.
Yeah, boyfriend slash servant. Yeah.
The interesting thing is, in this episode, he's basically in the episode for like, he's alive for 10 minutes in the episode. That's it.
Yep.
10 minutes. Because technically he only stayed in the house for 2 days before all the weird stuff started happening. Because, that
Before we get R for Rory.
Yeah, that was when all the weird stuff started happening. And so basically Philippe Mott only lived in the house for 2 days.
Oh, yeah.
During the blood moon.
Yep.
So the settlers basically destroyed all of his art.
Yep.
So he freaks out and he accuses all of his servants of this, and he locks them in the root cellar. And then, he locks them in the root cellar, and he basically tells his boyfriend to stay away from him for the rest of the night. And he's by himself, and this is when the settlers basically come and get him out of his own bed. They drag him out of his house, and he's standing on the porch saying, "This is my land," and then the butcher proceeds to give her speech saying, "No, this is my land, and I'm going to consecrate it with your blood." And then they impale him immediately after that.
Through the you-know-what.
Yeah, they impale him right after that and immediately burn him alive.
Yep.
And that is the only time that we actually see him alive. And beyond that point, he's a ghost. So, yeah.
It's very interesting the way they portrayed the reenactment ghost of Mott, because when we finally see the real ghost, it's just like this entity. It's really
That's
strange.
all it is. I know.
Yeah.
And the lighting that they did between...
It was creepy.
It was creepy, the lighting that they did when they were in the tunnels and Evan was...
Oh, his face kept changing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because eventually Edward ends up getting Shelby and Matt out of the house through the tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
But he only takes them so far. And we didn't know it at the time, but he was basically leading them straight to the Polks.
Yeah, because he had to give a sacrifice to the butcher.
He had to give the sacrifice to the butcher. So then the Polks come back into play, and this is where we find they're doing the reenactments, and this is where we get our Frances Conroy. Love Frances Conroy.
Yep.
But man, was she scary even as a reenactor.
I know.
Yeah, I wish she was done the real Mama Polk.
I do too. I wish they would have reversed that.
They would have reversed it, but so, and then we find out that Elias is still alive, and Elias is laying on their table.
Getting ready to get eat.
Well, yeah, they already took his leg.
Yeah.
Took his leg, and they're already making jerky out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, gross. And then the funniest line in that whole thing is when Matt goes over to talk to him, and he's like, "Hi, Matt. You guys need to get out of here. These people are crazy." We're like, really? How could you say that with a straight face?
Folks are disturbing.
Yeah, it's gross.
And we haven't even gotten to the worst part of it yet.
And they managed. They're taking them back to the butcher. The butcher's waiting for a sacrifice, and they're in a truck. And they're in the truck. It's bouncing around. They got a gun on them and everything. And Matt manages to get the gun away from them, and they manage to shoot one of the other brothers while he's driving in the truck.
Yeah.
And then they push the other one out of the truck. So she loses one of her sons during this.
Hello?
There's my phone.
For me, I'm not here.
Code word. Code word.
All right. Oh, wait. Okay. But anyway, they're going to take them back, and the most gruesome part of this whole thing is when the is when Mama Polk actually breaks her ankle with the sledgehammer.
So
Ugh, I can't even watch it.
That would, you know what? Afro makes a good point. It would have been great if there was somebody named Stewart in the episode. The whole Stew line would have been tied back to Roanoke.
Stew. Stupid.
But it's iconic now. It's on shirts and everything everywhere.
Oh, I know.
And BRT with his emojis.
Actually, I had no problems with the first part of Apocalypse.
I know, I didn't either, but
anyway, we digress.
We're digressing for time. Yeah, that is, for me, that's the most gruesome one, except for when they kill Elias with the hammer to the head.
Yeah.
And you actually see it.
Yeah.
Because they decide they're feeding him to Flora. She doesn't want to take the meat, and then she eats it and realizes it's rancid, and then they realize, well, we can't use it anyway, so you might as well just go ahead and kill it. So what do? They kill him. Yeah. In the most gruesome way possible. So there's a lot of gruesome in this season, and yeah. Oh,
yeah, I forgot how much it was unresolved, unsolved when the My Roanoke Nightmare ended.
Because the season or episode 5 ended with them finally getting away, and they ended up in the hotel room. Mm-hmm. And Shelby was getting ready to take a shower, and she saw the smoke underneath the door. So she goes to open the door, and then she sees the butcher with the hatchet, and she goes to kill her, and then she wakes up from the dream.
Yep.
And she still hasn't been able to deal with that.
Yeah.
And that's how episode 5 ends.
Yeah, we didn't get all the mysteries.
BRT makes a good point. He said he wonders if American Horror Stories might make those kinds of links. So like all these little links with like the characters and the Easter eggs and the little drops here or there that don't really connect, but they do.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll do something like that and maybe make more of these connections. That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, we have brought you guys the WTF moments from episodes 1 through 5 of Roanoke / My Roanoke Nightmare. There you go. My Roanoke Nightmare.
It's just so fun.
Like this, you can read it. Nope, because my chair's there. Yeah.
Sort of. Not quite.
So we thank you for being here. We hope you guys enjoyed this. We will have part 2 for you guys tomorrow.
Yeah.
WTF part 2, which will be the rest.
Yep, the rest.
Rest of the season. And we'll wrap it up.
Have a wand?
Yes, we do. We have the January. Okay. The Rowan wand. There's another skull wand, just with a different saw wood.
That one's nice.
Wow.
This is January 21st through February 17th.
Oh, you just had to miss my birthday.
That's all right. He hasn't hit mine yet either. Don't feel bad.
Yours is coming with the 4. Yours coming tomorrow, I think. It's with the 4, because remember, there's 4 of these of the 13 that they changed when they changed the ones out. So when I do the 4, I'll show both of them. But right now, I'm just showing the ones that didn't change.
There you go.
We're just giving you a hard time because we can't.
Yeah.
I think we're down to the 4 now.
All right. With that being said, we love you guys. We love you for being here. We'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good night.
Eat some jerky.
Take care, guys.
Go eat some jerky.
Eat your meat. Don't beat your meat. Eat your meat.
No, go beat your meat.
Do both.